Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle and triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Johanna Walker. Johanna is a fear-blasting storytelling maven for coaches, consultants, leaders, and change makers, also known as a public speaking coach. As a keynote speaker and workshop facilitator, she presented for corporations, nonprofits, startups, community organizations, and the TEDx stage, helping audiences develop authentic presence as speakers, find the ideas they want to be known for, and craft those ideas into compelling presentations. She is the founder of Craft Your Talk and Speakers Playground, unconventional speaker training programs where entrepreneurs and community leaders become confident and memorable speakers. She is the co-founder of Boulder Story Slam, where audience members come to a stage to tell true stories about their lives. How fun! In addition to her work as a speaker and coach, Johanna has written and performed solo theater pieces, and she's toured throughout the US and Canada. She believes we all have stories to tell that can change someone's life and is passionate about bringing more untold stories to the table. Welcome, lady. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Is it It's Johanna, right?
It's actually Johanna.
Johanna. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I hope I'm not the only one that's ever done that.
I actually wrote a poem called 26. I can't remember what. It was like 20 years ago. It's 26 different ways people have misnamed me or mispronounced my name.
Johanna. Well, I so thank you for being here and hanging out with us today, and sharing some of your time, some of your stories, some of your experiences with all this awesomeness that you are doing in your life. I can only imagine the awesome life that you led to get you to where you are right now.
I'm thrilled to be here. Yeah, and I have some shit's happened, and I have some stories to tell.
Well, I love it, Johanna. First of all, where are you from?
I live in Boulder, outside of Boulder, Colorado. Born in Chicago, grew up in the Midwest. My family lives in Ohio, where I actually am right now, visiting my mom and my brother in Ohio.
Fantastic. It's probably a little chilly out there right now.
It is. It's cold and wet and rainy today, but it's supposed to warm up the end of the week. And it's peak leaf season, so I'm going to get to see the extraordinary leaves.
That's one thing that I do miss about living up north, because I live in Florida, is the change of the season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know we have some stuff to cover. I'm really excited to dive into what you do. But before we do that, I like to ask my guests this question. What story changed your entire life, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, it's interesting. As I thought about that question, or thinking about that question, like, my life is changing all the time, and every story, like, that's what we do by being human, is transformational, right? So one of the stories, I just want to tell a story that happened recently, because so many stories have changed my life, but recently a big change was I was living in a house in Boulder, Colorado for 11 years. I was a renter, but I lived in it like an owner, and I had housemates that became lifelong friends, and I had gardens, and I got to know the community, and I had a really loved my house, and I invited a woman to live in who I met on Craigslist, and she moved in, and initially it was kind of a little bit off. Like, it was like, she would make her dinner and take it into her room and eat it, and we never sat at the table and talked, and it was like, this isn't how I wanted to be in my home. But it was, it was okay. I could live with it. And then we started having some conflicts about the lights and the heat and little niggly things. And then that started escalating into door slamming. She would slam the doors and throw tantrums when she didn't get her way. And I finally said, I don't think this is a fit. It's not working great. Maybe it's time for us to renegotiate. And I've lived here 11 years. Do you agree that it makes sense that if we're going to renegotiate, you would leave? And she said, no, if you don't like living with me, you move out. And then she just like put her foot down, dug her heels in, and it became atrocious. And I had this note on my bathroom mirror, and it said, show up, pay attention, tell the truth without judgment or blame. Don't be attached to the outcome. And, this is just like a way that I show up in my life. And one day I came home and she had ripped it up. She had ripped it up. And this note I had for 30 years. I hung it on my bathroom mirror wherever I lived. And I had this, and it was a little drawing, and I had it for 30 years. And there it was on my bathroom mirror, and she ripped it up and put it in the garbage, in the trash. And when I asked her about it, she said, take this as a warning. You fuck with me, I'll fuck with you 3 times as hard. Because I had done something that pissed her off. She said, you fuck with me, I'll fuck with you 3 times as hard. Anyway, it went on and on like that. She called the police on me. She believed I was trying to harass her. And my friends started saying, Johanna, I think it's time for you to move. And I was like, no, this is my home. I'm not going to move. I can't leave. And then one day I was in my office working. She was having an episode out in the hallway, and I wanted to take my computer to go to a friend's house and work there. And I was afraid to walk from my room to the front door. So that was when I said, Johanna, you can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that night I was gifted a tarot card. This is where the big teaching comes in. I was gifted a tarot deck. I went to a White Elephant gift exchange, and I was gifted a tarot deck, and I drew a card, and it said, let go of your obsession with possession is clouding your view. Let go of your coins to continue on your path.
Oh my gosh.
And like literally 20 minutes later, I get this text from a friend saying Jules is looking for a housemate at Nyland, which is a co-housing community. And the next day I decided to move, and I called in the troops. And in 3 days, literally in 3 days, my friends came over, packed up 4 truckloads of stuff to go to Goodwill. I moved into this extraordinary co-housing community that is like beyond my wildest dreams of home and community. And it has been such a powerful lesson. Let go of your coins to continue on your path. And just like some of the things that we think, like, I was holding so hard, this is my home, I'm not going to leave, I've lived here for 11 years, how can you kick me out of my home? And when I finally let go, just extraordinary blessings rained down on me. It's like, I think the big lesson is leaning in and trusting the mystery and allowing what unfolds to unfold, and letting go of what we think we need to hold on to is when extraordinary things happen.
Wow. Can you repeat the thing that was on your bathroom? I want to write it down.
Yeah. Show up.
Show
Pay
up.
attention. Tell the truth without judgment or blame. Don't be attached to the outcome. And I will say the good news is I had a friend years ago, like I said, I've had it for 30 years. And I had a friend years ago who took a picture of it. And after this incident, she found the photograph, printed it for me, sent it to me. So I still have that on my bathroom.
Oh, I love it. Where did you originally get it from?
I don't know. It was, I think originally it was like, I don't know. Some bumper sticker. I don't know where it comes from,
I love
But
that.
it's
What
yeah.
a cool story. Do you still have it on your bathroom
I
mirror?
still have it on my bathroom mirror. And it
Yes.
reminds me of that magical because it's just a photograph, it's not
Yeah,
the original drawing, so it reminds me of that powerful like, that I was so situated in my ways and in my groove that
yes,
something so this total, mental illness person
yeah,
person I mean, I bow to the whatever ways she was hurt in the world that
yeah,
led her to behave in this way, and I deeply honor her as an angel in my life
yeah.
at this point.
What is your thought as far as when you said the part in your story where you were like, "We took a bunch of trucks to Goodwill." What did that feel like? Because for some people, that would be like,
Yeah, it was very liberating. It was very liberating and it was again just like letting go. There was so much energy in the stuff. And
yeah,
it was stuff that I'd collected over years that I kind of attached to my body in particular ways of like, this is me. This is me. I'm attached to my stuff. And to let it go is liberating,
yes.
truly. And I don't miss any of it.
Yeah. When I left my ex, I left everything behind. I left with my clothes, my son, and my bicycle. Well, his
Wow.
clothes too, and totally started over. And I remember the feeling of I was sitting on a mattress on the floor. I had nothing. And I remember the feeling of when I first started out as a single mom and having nothing,
Mm.
and remembering the unworthiness that I felt for having nothing. Like, "Oh, I'm such a horrible single mother living the single mother life, and I have nothing." And I have this story that I tell about this dresser that I found in the trash. It's a long story. But anyways, the difference between the same story, basically, but the difference between the feeling that came up for me as far as, like, just being and just, like, being okay with the basics of life and how freeing it really is.
Yeah, truly. We need so little.
Yes.
We really need very little.
And just the cleaning for me, like,
Yeah,
I still
yeah.
like, I haven't acquired hardly anything. I don't have nothing. Um, I keep it very, very basic in my life. And the only other thing is I don't like to clean it all.
Uh-huh.
It's so much easier, like, you have a life because 'cause you're out and you're about and you're not spending, like, a full day cleaning your whole house.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you live with people?
I do, I live with a 12-year-old boy and his mom,
I love that.
and I love getting to be so close with a I don't have kids of my own, and, I just posted on your Facebook group today, I saw the thread about why did you not have children, and I just posted a talk I gave about my journey of not having children. Which is not a simple story, but anyway, I don't have children, so I cherish the relationships I get to have it with young people, and I love that I get to live with this 12-year-old boy. He's awesome, and he really, I have a because I'm not his parent, I just have a different way that I get to be with him, and so we have a really close relationship, and we during COVID, I moved in the middle of COVID, and during, COVID, we would have meals together every night, and every night now we do it as much as we can, but a lot less because everybody's busy again. But every night when we would sit down at the table, we would ask, "How were you kind today?
Oh,
How'd you mess up today? And how were you brave today?"
oh, that's so beautiful.
Such a lovely practice to do for myself with this 12-year-old boy, my husband.
Imagine the difference in who he is versus who he would have been
Yeah,
with this new thought process that you're giving him. Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I
That's
love it.
yeah, that's deep thinking that most children aren't
Yeah.
accustomed to even needing to think about.
Yeah, it's a
Are
really lovely and simple practice.
yeah. What is your thought process as far as personal development, personal growth? Have you dove into that?
Oh my God, that's kind of what I'm all about. It's kind of what I'm all about. I work with, my business is I work with mostly entrepreneurs, leaders, but mostly their mission for speaking is connected somehow to their business, but their business is tied to a mission, a way they want to have impact in the world. And so I work with business owners, I work with these leaders to help them craft their ideas into talks as a way to amplify their message and step into thought leadership. And that's what that's what they come to me looking for. But what happens is massive transformation. Really, that's what I'm passionate about. That we all have so much tied in our voices, and that when we speak, when you take the stage and claim authority and tell your story, so much transformation happens. And that comes from a deep life of my own personal growth and my own really digging into my story and the places where I got hurt, and what's essential for healing those hurts. That when I meet those challenges, and when I meet the wounds of the past that still drive today, when I do that healing, so much more becomes possible in my life. I get to have a bigger life. I get to have closer relationships. I get to manifest my genius in bigger ways. And so it's really central to how I show up in the world.
I sometimes think about, I don't know if you've ever been to Tony Robbins before, his seminars.
I haven't.
He says this one thing in the beginning. I've gone twice, but he says this one thing in the beginning about how we're all there to be like transformed and to unleash our power. And he goes, I'm sorry to tell you, but actually, this is a communication seminar. But like, who would have showed up if I would have said that this was like nobody would have showed up? So it kind of reminds me of what a lot of us do. A lot of us are specializing or niching in a certain arena, but in actuality, there's this whole other foundation that we're giving to our clients that they don't even necessarily know that they're getting or that they need.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's when people come back after working with me, they're generally saying like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Like I faced my fear. I
Yeah.
faced my fear. I did a thing I didn't know I could do. And all the ripple in their lives that happened because they took that leap. And everybody has different edges, different places that take them to the edge, and different ways their fear shows up. And when you're willing to walk towards it, like, I speak from experience too. Like, it's true for me. Like, when I'm willing to face it, that's when stuff really moves in my life.
Yeah.
That's, I always have to say, like, that's cool to say on a bumper sticker or a Hallmark card or something, but like the reality of it, not easy.
Yeah.
The reality of it, easy to walk away from. Easy to check your email, watch a show, eat some chocolate, have a drink, whatever way you want to avoid it. Super easy. Not easy facing your fear.
100. A moment ago, you mentioned that you've been through some hardship. Can you share a story?
Yeah. When I was a what do I want to share? I think, maybe I think one of the things is there's the early shit. There's the early stuff that, like, I was on a playground playing with my sister and my best friend, and there was a man who called us behind the building one at a time. It was a Saturday. We were just there alone in the school playground, and he called us behind the building one at a time and had his way with us. And then we were, we waited our turn like well-behaved girls. I remember the three of us waiting on the line where we, where on Monday morning I was going to go stand in line to go into school. I can remember us waiting one at a time. We went behind the building. And then we went home kind of freaking out a little, like, oh, it seemed a little strange. So we ran into Jenny's mom and she called the police and we sat in a police car and my sister said, I held my pants on. He didn't touch me. And Jenny said, I held my pants on. He didn't touch me. So I was like, wait a second, that's weird because he did touch me and I didn't hold my pants on. Oops, I must have fucked up. So I said, I held my pants on. He didn't touch me.
Wow.
And that was, and he did. And that was a secret I carried for many, many years.
Wow.
And when I finally started telling that story was just when I was a young adult in writing and I started writing poetry and going to poetry readings and telling my story. And then that's one small part of it, that was when I discovered the power and the liberation, both for other people, for myself, one, like the energy that was tied up in not telling opened a door for myself. And then in telling, other people said, oh, that's my story too. And I was like, whoa, wait, what? Huh? So it allowed for connection and community and relationship and like, oh, I started to see the healing power of telling our stories.
Have you
So
ever thought about whether or not either one of the other girls were also lying?
I've talked to my sister says no,
Okay.
and I think she was my older sister. She had a little more agency,
Yeah.
she somehow had, and for whatever reason, I, I did what I was told. I didn't know I could hold my pain. I didn't know there was an option.
Choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
When did you learn choice?
Oh my gosh. Say more about that. What do you mean by choice?
That you could say no.
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing learning. I'm still learning. Let me think of a specific, when did I learn choice? I can't think of a specific story, but I will say that it's been, it's learning when to say no, and it's also learning when to say yes, that I can choose. I think I had a really tough time deciding, making any decision as a young
Yeah.
adult. I had a really tough time. I would hem and haw and, and then I would make the decision and then convince myself that I absolutely had made the wrong decision. No matter what decision I made, I could convince myself I'd made the wrong decision. So that's what made the next decision terrifying because I knew I would make another bad decision. And so then I would hem and haw and stay up nights and, not make the decision. And then I would finally make it and then convince myself it was wrong. So as a young adult, I was famous for not making decisions. Famous.
Wow.
And that's been just a healing too. I mostly don't get stuck there. I'm pretty good at just like, let's do it. I feel the feelings, feel the fear, make the decision, trust. It's like a deep, deep, deep practice of trusting the mystery. Again, the decision to leave my house a couple of years ago, it was deep calling on deep trust that I'm held. Whatever happens, I am being held. So it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah. I actually remember when I first realized I had a choice. With my ex, he used to say this thing to me where he would say, whoever has all the money has all the power, or whoever makes all the money makes all the rules. And I remember at one point, he did this for 8 years. At one point, I was sitting and I thought to myself, does that mean that if I can make money, I can make rules? And if I have money, do I have power? And it was a definitive moment.
Wow.
And I remember going out and throwing myself against books. And
Throwing yourself, say that again?
finance books on finance,
Uh-huh.
and realizing that like I had a choice.
Mm.
I didn't have to be broke. I didn't have to have zero money in my bank account. I could have money if I wanted to. It was a big shift for me.
Cool.
What would you say is the number one lesson you've learned about life?
It's something about surrender and trusting the mystery. Trust.
Oh, I love that. Tell me
Yeah.
more.
I think one of the other big stories, which I share in the talk that I talked about my not having children, that was when I was first starting my business as a speaking coach. I was invited to give a talk about how I walk the edge. And my first thought, that was at a time when I was really starting to process deeply the fact that I wasn't going to have a child. And I knew, and that was a thing in my family, and it was like my mother always expected, and I always expected that I would get married and have a baby, right? And so rearranging my whole cellular, like giving my life meaning, and my cellular like organization of how I am on the planet and why I am on the planet was major. So when I was invited to give this talk of how I walk the edge, I knew it had to be something about my life as a single woman without children. And that in this, heteronormative nuclear family, privilege, the privilege of the nuclear family, and the front facing, that's the end, that's the gold, that's the ticket, that's the winning ticket culture. That's a big way I walk the edge, right? And so I knew it had to be about that. And I gave that talk, and it was terrifying because it was so personal. It was so personal. It was a
Wow.
very personal journey and a very painful journey. And I considered canceling at the last minute. I was like, Johanna, you don't have to do this, because I was terrified. I was terrified. It was so vulnerable. You don't have to do this, Johanna. And I was thinking of canceling, and how could I cancel, and coming up with excuses. And then I went and I did it. What got me to walk on that stage, because even as I'm standing backstage, ready to considering, like, I have to do it. I told myself, if there's one person in the audience who needs to hear this talk today, I'm going to give it for her.
Yeah.
And that's what got me on stage, was doing it for someone else, doing it because it could matter to somebody else. And I did it. And indeed, there was more than one person in the audience who was deeply impacted. It's on YouTube. I still get emails from people saying, thank you for that talk. It helped me talk about this with my family. And so one is that it's like, oh, my light just went out. That's weird. Hi. Right?
I can still see you. Yeah. We're doing it romantic style.
I don't know how to, in a minute, let me just finish this and say, if the impact, what did I just say? The impact of, if there's one person, so understanding the power of our stories, that it's not about you. It's not about you. And we can't control the ripple. Like when I'm working with somebody on giving a talk, we do a process of just like crafting the arc, the engineering of telling the story and giving the talk, and who's in the audience and how do you want to impact them. It's a science, but in the end, you have no control. You just show up, be you, share your heart, and you have no idea how it's going to impact your people. It's a mystery, and you kind of have to surrender to it. And then on another level, I always thought I would have a child, and I didn't. And it's surrendering and trusting the mystery of being human.
Yeah.
And
it must be such an amazing process for you to be able to coach these individuals and then see the progress unfolding verbally like on a continuous basis. Like watching them craft their story, the way they're speaking, the way they're holding themselves, and then actually seeing the evolution right in front of you just must be so
Yeah.
cool.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there any limiting beliefs that you had to get rid of to come into who you are now?
Well, I would say the big one was I was is it better? I'm trying to figure out what to do. Should I take 1 minute and see if I can get this
If
light
you
back
want.
on?
Yeah, if you want.
Let me just see if I can do that.
Totally.
I don't know what happened.
I love your background. Is that, 2 lights beaming onto a white wall?
It is. It is.
Oh, cool.
I'm at my brother's house and he set this up for me. He's TikTok famous and he's got the whole studio and I don't know how to get the light back on. Dang it.
Is he home? Do you wanna ask him?
Let me just go ask him. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Hang
We're just
on.
chilling.
Hey, Hal, can you come help me? The light just went out. Okay. We're chill here, right?
Yeah, we're just chilling.
Yeah, so I would say the big story was when I was when I was a kid, I was really quiet. I was really quiet. I would say that incident on the playground kind of hammered that in, but I was already a really quiet, sensitive kid. And I made this self-portrait when I was in college. Here he comes. Maybe I'll just pause a minute and see if
Is he coming to save the day like
he's
Superman?
going to save the day. Yeah. He's as I said, he's a musician and he has a couple million followers on TikTok. And
You wanna give him a shout out?
his name's Hal Bonacula. He's Bonacula on TikTok. Hal Walker. Hal Walker is his name.
HAL Walker?
HAL, Hal. Yeah.
If they wanna follow him on TikTok?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
Or on YouTube or Instagram. He's pretty out there.
What kind of music?
He plays this instrument called the can. It's from Thailand. It's ancient, the grandmother of the harmonica. And some plug just dropped out, maybe. Sorry. There we go. Yay.
Yes.
Okay.
Hal saved the day. Thank you, Hal.
You're welcome.
So we were talking about limiting beliefs.
Yeah. So the big story I had was I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. And that was to the bone. I carried a torch for that story. I have nothing to say. I made this self-portrait in college, my face in a corner. It was this big 18 by 24 piece of paper, my face in the corner, a huge talk bubble that filled the space. And in the center of the space, in tiny letters, it said, I have nothing to say.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That was my self-portrait. That's the story I told about myself that I believe to be true to the bone.
Wow.
I have nothing to say.
And now you're a speaker on a stage.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of shit. Apparently, I have a few things to say. But it's funny because every time I have an opportunity to step to a new level, I faceplant in that story. Like when I started my business, I was comfortable as a poet, as a theater artist. And then I started my coaching business. I was working with a coach and my coach said, now it's time for you to speak. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? I have nothing to say. I can coach people, but I have nothing to say myself.
Yeah.
Getting on stage as a speaker was a whole different can of worms than being as an artist.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And then like when I had an opportunity to give a TEDx talk, I was like, TEDx, that's cool. Maybe in a few years, but I have nothing to say, so, so the story, I get to revisit that story over and over. I think those old limiting beliefs, they stick around, they come back we get each time we have the opportunity to meet them, rewrite them, we get more and more access to our power and our genius.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing story. What a transformation.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Big. It's big. I sometimes forget.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I
forget.
mean, that's the kind of stuff that gives people hope. I mean, there's people right now with that same thought,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And now there's TEDx in your story.
Yeah.
I mean, how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
What would you wish for?
For myself, for the world,
Doesn't matter.
I wish I believe so much in the power of our expressive possibility through our voice. You know, my focus, the place where I put my attention is how we express ourselves through our voice, our body, our creative potential, and the life affirming power of that, the generative power of that we create the world we want to live in through our expression, through, you know, how we express ourselves through our words, our voices, our bodies, our hearts. And so what I wish for, you know, and I think that we get hammered in all sorts of ways, but as you know, sexism, racism, classism, all the ways the culture hammers out our humanity and puts us into boxes and shuts down the messy parts, you know, shuts down the parts, the shameful parts, the parts we want to hide, shuts down, so forces us to shut down so much of our humanity. What I wish for is that we could all have more access to that and let more of that shine in the world. And because that's the world I want to live in. And we create that world by doing that, you know, by as all that we've talked about today, like facing our fears, doing the hard thing, walking to the edge, telling the hard story, showing up for the discomfort.
Yeah.
That's actually how we create the world. And so what I want is a world where everybody gets to do that. Everybody sees the power of that. Everybody claims and owns the magic and the light that they have to shine. And again, I'm not talking Hallmark sticker, Hallmark card. Like that's some hard shit, you know. That's not, because we're so busy. We're so just like there's so much. We got to pay the bills and we got to do the things, and you know, there's so much. You know, and the way that our screens just like suck so much of our attention these days. It's not an easy thing, but it's so important. So important.
Yeah. What would you say to a female listening right now who's struggling with pivoting from their story? They want a different ending.
I would say a couple things. One, show up, pay attention, tell the truth without judgment or blame. Don't be attached to the outcome.
I love it.
You know, that we really do. The more you can show up for what's happening right now, the sensation of right now.
Yeah.
That's what you know, when I'm working with speakers about getting on stage and the fear around that, like we don't actually work to shut down the fear. We work to show up for it and with it. And so when you can really show up in this moment with what's happening, surrender to the mystery. Like that's one piece of it. That's the place where it's like surrender. That doesn't mean be passive. Doesn't mean just like sit and wait for the life to happen for you, right? There is some piece of letting go that we have to do, letting go of the outcome, right? And surrendering and showing up. And when I mean showing up, it's like showing up with your heart and your breath and your body and your voice and all the sensations and and of being human, all the discomfort. It's uncomfortable being human, right? When we can really show up for it, there's transformation in the showing up. There's truly transformation in the showing up. And then the flip side of that is go before you're ready. Go before you're ready. Take the leap. Don't, it's not, I'm not saying sit around and be passive and let life happen to you. I'm saying go before you're ready. Take the leap. Jump into the darkness. Jump into the unknown. Take some action. Take a baby step. I'm not the person who is like, set your 5-year goal and do everything to get you to the thing that you want 5 years from now. That's not the way I roll, right?
Yeah.
But you can have an intention, you can have a vision, and then take a baby step. Go before you're ready. Do something, because you're going to get information from that leap.
Yeah.
When I'm working with, again, in my program, Craft Your Talk, people are crafting a talk, and they get into the zone of like, we kind of start with a big dig, looking into your ideas and your stories and your expertise. And then you got to craft a talk. And it's like, wait, what? How do I get this mess of my life into a talk? And sometimes you just got to take the plunge and start. You get information, you put a stake in the ground, and then you can keep moving.
Yeah. I like what you said there. Go before you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you?
It means that you have to take a bit of a leap into the unknown. If you wait until you feel like, I'm all for rehearsal and practice and craft and taking time to simmer and, be ready, like do the work. And we can't ever be completely ready. So there's a certain amount of leaping we have to do.
Yeah. We have a really beautiful comment here if you want to read this out loud.
Somehow I knew I needed to log in to hear Johanna's story, and I'm glad I made the choice to take the time. I have so much to say, but struggle with knowing the how and the who. I've also used poetry. I'm working on writing a book, which will include my poetry at the points where it fits my story. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. I love that call. I often say to people, if you don't want to speak, don't speak. If you don't want to get on stage, don't get on stage. If you don't want to tell your story, don't tell your story. You don't have to. There are many ways to express ourselves in the world, right? Yeah. But if you do, if you hear the call, answer the call. Even if you don't know the how or the who.
Yeah.
Right? Answer the call. That's when you got to go before. If you hear the call, you got to answer the call. Thanks for that comment.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Quick shout out to those watching live. Thank you for being here and hanging out with Johanna and I. If you're watching on the replay, make sure that you hashtag replay so that we know where you watched us at and we can send you some love. But I want to ask, what do you do for work? We're getting an idea of it, but what do you do exactly for work? Where can people find you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a speaking coach, and I have two programs. And what I do is I lead the programs, and I build relationships. I build relationships in order to connect with people and let them know more about how we can create the world we want to live in together. But the programs are Craft Your Talk, which is specifically mostly for mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to step into thought leadership. I help you get the talk from seed to stage. So we get clear about the idea. What are the stories you want to tell? Who do you want to speak to? How do you craft that journey for your audience? And then it's an online program for 8 weeks. And then we get together for a weekend in person. I just had the in-person weekend a couple of weeks ago here in Boulder. And we get together in person for a weekend, workshop the talk for 2 days live, and then I host an event where you get to deliver the talk. So you get that experience of getting the talk on stage there's nothing like a date on the calendar to get you to create, do the work. And so we put a date on the calendar. You get professional video, you get professional photos, and then we take a month to learn how to market the talk. What do you have to have in place? How do you pitch it? How do you find the stages? How do you get it out there so people can hear it? So it's 90 days, and it's a pretty robust program. And then the other is Speakers Playground, which is a membership. It happens twice a month online, and it's more focused on delivery, comfort, presence, how to really get in your skin, how to show up and make that connection. It's not so much content focused, but how to really be more in your awesomeness and in your you-ness when you speak in any situation.
Where can people find you?
Well, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and Instagram, Johanna Walker Speaking. On either place, you can find me there. You can check out my website, johannawalker.com. Those are the best places. I keep threatening to make more videos on YouTube, but haven't gotten there yet. It's just a threat right now.
Why do you do what you do?
Somebody just asked me that question last week. I was on a hike at a conference for female business owners, and somebody said, before I ask people what they do, I like to know why they do it. And I was like, that's great. So it led to a really interesting conversation. Anyway, why I do what I do is because I know so deeply the pain of not speaking. I know so deeply the pain of having something to say and not saying it, either because I believe it doesn't have value or because I don't believe I have anything to say or because I don't know how, like whatever the reason. I know so deeply the pain of not speaking. And I know the power of speaking. I know the power it has to change my life and the world. Hands down. It's and so that's why I do it, because I want to, that's how I best know how to create the world that I want to live in, by helping people do that.
I really appreciate the comment that you made a few moments ago about there's a lot of different ways to speak. It's not always on stage. Poetry, arts, colors, paint, dance.
Yeah.
I mean, there really is so many ways in which a person can tell their story. And I think that humans in general are innately creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of us with words, some of us with color and drawing and music.
Yeah. And I believe just getting up out of bed in the morning and putting your 2 feet on the ground and creating your day is a creative act.
Ooh.
Being human is a creative act. We are all creative because we are creating our lives with every step we take. And I think when you can really claim and own that agency, that you get to create your life. Being human is a creative process. And then, when we get into the creative, more sort of what we think of as creative arts, it's like, yeah, we all get that. We all have that. It's not, I've heard, I dated a guy I went on some dates. I didn't date him very long because of this, but I went on some dates. He was like, I don't have a creative bone in my body. And I was like, yes, you do, because you're human. Like, we all have creative bones in our body. We all have creative bones in our body. It just gets taken away from us. We get shut down from that doorway.
Yeah.
But there's so much power in opening that door and waking up those bones.
What's your big dream for your business?
Well, I Yeah, my big dream. I mean, I feel pretty lucky to get to do what I do, and what I've set up so far is pretty sweet. And I would say my bigger dream is probably to reach more people. I did one of the things I did in the last couple of years after one of the things I talked about a little bit in my intro was the Story Slam that I host. It's a live event in Boulder where people come, just audience members come to the stage to tell stories based on a theme. And so after George Floyd was murdered, I had a Story Slam coming up, and it was online, it was COVID. And I was like, how do I use this platform to be part of the conversation around race as a white person, like wanting to join the conversation and use the power of story to move this conversation forward that we as a culture so deeply need to move forward. And I was like, I could make the theme race, but that could be a disaster to just hand the mic to people and say, here, talk about race. So I led a workshop. I invited people into a workshop, and it was mixed race. It was half white people and half people of color. And we did a deep dive over 8 weeks into stories, looking at our stories around race and how race has impacted our lives. And it was so much of the anti-racism work that I've done has been with white people, and white people looking at our stuff. Like, we have to be in rooms of white people to be able to make messes and say stupid things and ask stupid questions and look hard at our racism, look hard at how we as white people have been indoctrinated with white supremacy, And so mostly I've done that in rooms of white people, and that's really important, valuable work. So I was pretty scared about inviting people of color. I co-led with a man who's a friend of mine. So it was great to have that shared leadership. And we went, oh my God, it was so rich. The relationships that got built, the stories that got told, the questions that got asked, the truth that got told. It was so rich. And then we did an event where everybody told their stories. And I've done 3 of those since then. And it's been so powerful. And so I want to do more of that. I really want to more intentionally use the power of story to generate meaningful conversations about culture and how we become who we are, and to look at our privilege, to look at the ways we've been hurt, to look at all that. There's so much power in building relationships through stories. So like, I've used stories to build my business, and I feel like part of my service mission in the world is so much about, like, let's just get more stories to the table.
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank you for being here. I so appreciate you and the journey that you took us on, and all the golden nuggets that you left for us. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think my closing thought is as I said earlier, if you hear the call, answer the call. Probably before you're ready.
Yeah.
Hear the call, answer the call. And it's not about you. It's not about you. I think we can get so hung up on, like, are they going to like me? Am I going to be smart enough? Am I as good as she is? Am I going to embarrass myself? We get so caught in just like us and how scared I am or how humiliated I might be. And just remember, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about the person out there who needs to hear you.
Yeah.
It's about the person who needs to hear you, and somebody needs to hear you. Somebody is waiting for you.
Yeah.
Somebody is waiting for you, and you got to get out there for that person.
Yeah. I mention that a lot. And I also love to mention that if somebody is in our story, it's not about them either. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we can get caught up in that. I can't tell you how many
Right.
individuals are all like, what story do I have to tell? Because I
Right.
can't tell certain stories.
Right.
And yes, I get that. However, it's not about us. We don't tell our stories to hurt anybody. We tell our stories to inspire those who are going through that situation right now. They need some assistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like we all have to get out of our head. We all have to forgive each other and move on. Just is what it is. And our stories can't go in vain. There's a higher purpose for them, or else what was the point? What was the point of even struggling to get out of it if you're not going to share in the wealth of what that story means?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
So
that.
true. I like one of the things Isaac Dinesen said it, and it's been such balm for me, is all suffering can be born when we tell a story about it. And it's like, not only can it be born for yourself, but it becomes a gift for somebody else when you tell the story about it.
Absolutely. Well, this has been phenomenal.
Thank you so much. So fun talking to you.
Yes, I could have continued talking to you, but we're going to go ahead and wrap up. So thank you so much for the time that you've given all of us here live, and for those that are going to be watching on the replay. Thank you for joining us. And this community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle or triumph, please reach out to me at hernation.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. As always, until next time.